Hi, I'm Maggie. Welcome to Experiments in Crafting. Tonight I'm going to share some stuff that I got share some stuff with you that I got at Stitches Midwest. Stitches Midwest is an event that's held every year in Schaumburg, Illinois, which is a few hours from me. And I've gone the last 4 or 5 years, and I enjoy it, but it can get a little bit the same every year. So we were kind of on the fence about going this year, and we just ended up deciding to go. It worked out with some other events going on. Spent a couple hours there just kind of shopping around, and I bought some stuff, and I thought I would share it with you tonight, and then we can sort of switch gears and talk about anything that you guys want to talk about. So questions about yarn or crochet or anything going on that I can help with as far as fiber related stuff. But yeah, so I just thought that we'd sort of get started on this. Welcome to everybody who's in the chat. I saw that there were a handful of people in there. A couple people have said hello. Go ahead and throw anything, questions and whatnot, into the chat while we're live, and I will try and answer any questions throughout the live stream. So like I said, Stitches is a big fiber festival or yarn show. It's expanded a little bit to include a little bit of quilting and a little bit of like sewing and stuff, but it was primarily knit, crochet, and spinning, a little bit of weaving. So it's expanding a little bit. There's a variety of booths. Their website says there's 240 plus booths. I think that's a little bit misleading because some companies have like 8 of the booths in a big block. And so I think that's a little bit of a misleading thing. I did a quick count and I came up with about 140 vendors when I just went through their vendor list. And that's just sort of a rough estimate. But 140 yarn vendors, primarily yarn vendors, is quite a bit of people there and a lot of stuff to see. So let's see. There were a number of vendors who were selling sort of accessory type things. So it was, for example, beads. There were like bead vendors. There were like people selling stitch markers and things like that. So not every booth is yarn, but that's true of most fiber festivals and yarn shows. A whole bunch of people saying hello in the comments. Hello to everyone out there. Welcome and thank you for joining me. Just as a quick heads up, while I've got a bunch of you here, we will not be streaming on Tuesday next week. We'll probably push it to Wednesday. I'm not 100% sure that that's the date, but I will post something on Instagram or Facebook. You can find me on both of those at Experiments in Crafting. All right, so I guess I'll dive right in and show you a few of the things that I got, and then if you have questions about stuff, you can ask individual questions on whatever I show. So, one of the first booths I came to, really like in the first aisle and found stuff that I really, really liked, was a booth that I've seen not at Stitches before, but at Wisconsin Sheep and Wool. So Wisconsin Sheep and Wool is another one of these fiber events that happens, I think, in September, usually one of the first weekends in September. And so I've seen this company before. I don't remember if I ended up buying from them the first time I saw them, but I definitely bought this time. Really, really loved. I've got a mini skein set. So this is sock yarn. It's merino, 80% merino wool, 20% nylon. They're 120 yards each. And they did come with a pattern, which I can show you without having to show the actual pattern. So came with this Tradewinds pattern. It's a knitting pattern, and as most of you know, I don't knit, but it is still nice that they gave that as part of the little kit. The kit contains 5 different colors. They had a variety of different options there, but these ones obviously went the best with the colors that I love. So you can see it kind of matches my hair. I did buy this kit with the intent to stripe them along with a solid color. There is a pattern from 10 hours or less that has an edging, so the whole pattern is worked up in a solid color, and then you work sort of a mini skein gradient set at the edge, and it was a really pretty pattern. I don't remember its name, but if you search for mini skein on Ravelry and then you choose like crochet patterns, there's only like 10 that specifically are targeted towards mini skein sets. So it was one of the ones that I was looking at to use these yarns for. Looked like a pretty cool pattern. The other yarn that I've got here is a BFL. So BFL is Blue Faced Leicester. It's a particular type of sheep. It is not a very soft, squishy wool like merino. It's a little bit scratchier, but it has just absolutely beautiful stitch definition. Everything that I've ever made out of BFL, it just comes out stunning. So I will probably use this for something with intricate stitch work. Maybe something like fingerless gloves with cabling, or really intricate shells, or just something with a lot of interesting stitches. Also, the colors are not like super crazy and changing all over the place, so I don't think they'll obscure a really intricate or very patterned stitch. So I think this is what I will, that's kind of my intent with that. Something that I really want to be stunning, like really want it to stand out and have beautiful stitch definition. I made this shawl out of BFL, and I've worn this over and over again, and you can see the stitches still stand up beautifully. You can see every individual stitch. They're not kind of muddled together. The lacy sections are still holding their structure for the most part. This has not been reblocked or anything. So BFL, like I said, is not the softest, coziest yarn, but it does, in my opinion, just have the best stitch definition. At least all the BFLs that I've worked with previously. I haven't worked with theirs specifically, but I expect it will be the same. So again, this is from Utopia. Let's see, what else do I have? I have some yarns here from Stunning String Studio. Couple of different yarns here that I have for a couple of different projects. So this is a lace weight yarn. It's 150 grams, 825 yards. It is destined to be a shawl for a friend of mine. So I'm just going to go with something kind of open and lacy and all in a solid color. And so that's what this is intended for. This purple here is supposed to mix in with a yarn that I have from another company, so I'll show you that in a second. And then this gray was just a really beautiful charcoal. Sometimes it's really hard to find a nice gray, so when I was looking at the Utopia set here, I really wanted a medium gray, and she didn't really have a medium gray that went with the set, so I went with this dark, like dark charcoal, nearly black yarn. But there is a chance that I might swap it out and save the black for something else and use this dark gray in with this set. I think it would look really nice here. A lot of the grays that I saw there had a very green hue or a really blue hue, and I was kind of looking just for sort of a neutral gray, and in a lot of cases I couldn't find exactly what I was looking for. So throw those over there. I've got 3 different bases here. So this is the lace weight. This is their Serenity base, which is 80% merino, 20% silk. And you can see that it's got kind of a nice shine to it. It's real shiny, very, very soft. It is 100 grams, 400 yards, and it is a number 1 super fine yarn, or fingering weight. And then I also have some of their Smashing Sock, which is a 75% merino, 25% nylon. 100 grams, 460 yards, also a #1 superfine yarn. So those are the three. Again, Stunning String Studio. For those of you who happen to live in or around Illinois, they did give me like a little flyer that says they're having a grand opening. They are opening a brick and mortar store in Sycamore, Illinois, which is up north, sort of near Rockford. For those of you who don't know, it's basically in the center of the state, closing in on the Illinois-Wisconsin border. So if you live in the Illinois, Wisconsin, Iowa area and you feel like making the drive over to Sycamore, they're opening a store at the end of August, and it looks like they're going to have giveaways and stuff. So if you're interested in catching them and you miss stitches, you could catch them at their new store, apparently. So I'm going to slide these off to the side as well. Next yarns that I have here are from Destination Yarn. There are two different bases again. This is the Silver Shiny base in the Stargazing colorway. And you should be able to see here that it has a whole bunch of stellina. Stellina is this like sparkly fiber that they mix in rather than glitter yarn that has a wrapped around glitter thread. So there's basically two different options. They can mix it in at the fiber level, or they can ply it in with the, like by wrapping around a thread around the yarn. And I tend to like the stellina version better because the sparkly bits don't move around so much. When you work with a yarn that has like a glitter thread wrapped around, it'll tend to bunch up on itself, and it just doesn't work up quite as nice. So I like the yarns that have the stellina mixed in. So again, this is the Silver Shiny base. The color is called Stargazing. It is fingering weight, 70% merino wool, 20% nylon, 5% stellina. It is 100 grams or 438 yards, and it is a #1 fingering weight yarn. And then over here I have the Passport base, and this is out of their Scottish. So Destination Yarn uses locations as themes, and then they'll do a whole batch of yarn around a particular location. So they had some Great Lakes ones, they had some Chicago colorways, they had Space was a location, and then this one was Scotland. And it was such a pretty color with this mossy green, and I really, really liked this like gray-brown color in here. This I think will end up being a cowl of some sort that I'm really, really looking forward to making. This again is a fingering weight yarn. It's 80% wool, 20% superwash merino wool, 20% nylon. It's 110 grams, 430 yards. And it is Elan Donnan Castle. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Eilean. Scottish. Sometimes the Scottish words are a little bit difficult to read and pronounce in English. So anyway, that's Destination Yarn. From Destination Yarn, I also picked up a little pin and an enameled pin. So I have a backpack that I usually wear to yarn shows and sort of crafting or fiber events that is covered in like enamel pins that I've collected from different locations, and just regular backed pins. And so I usually throw those on there and carry the same bag. I sort of feel like I need to find a different bag. This one is a crossbody one, and I just haven't been loving carrying that one. So I need to find a different bag, maybe something canvas that can hold the weight of all these pins. But so that's everything that I got from Destination Yarn. let's see, somebody mentioned that they love the color combo. I think that was back on the Utopia yarns with the subtle changes they're mentioning. So these are intended to work up from pink to purple to this mixed blue, blue-purple, and then I think the blue and then the teal, or whatever order you feel like works best. But this is probably the order I'd work them up in. And then somebody else said they love my nail polish, and thank you. So, yeah, so these are, I have a friend who does Color Street, which is one of the things where you do like a party and you buy like products from an individual, like at a party. And so Color Street has these nail polish things that go on, and sort of like, they're not really like stickers, but they're I guess that's the closest thing, kind of like decals or something. You line them up on your nails and then you lay them down and you pull. And when you pull it, it just makes this nice crease, and you can break the strip in half and then do the other half of the strip on the opposite hand. And they go on super easy, surprisingly. There are a couple of, I think it's the same company. It's a little unclear, but you can get them at Walmart and Ulta as well, not just from a Color Street person. But these ones I happened to grab at, I think, Walmart, and they look okay. They're not holding up as well, I don't think. And I don't know if that's just because I've been harder on my nails or if it's because there actually is a quality difference. But anyway, it's been super easy to do my nails again, and I really like having my nails painted. So, I guess if you're interested, these I got at Walmart. They're from like in Cocoa or something. But yeah, it made it super easy to do your nails, especially on your. So I'm left-handed, and so it made it really easy to do my left hand. Because you just stick them on and smooth them and then pull. And then you just turn the other half of the sticker around and put it on the opposite nail. So if you have sort of shaky hands or something and don't normally do like designs or fancy things, like these are faded from purple to pink to gold. And so yeah, I wouldn't have spent the time doing that and layering the colors with like different colored nail polishes. But I don't know, they're pretty cool, and they come off with nail polish remover, and they wear like normal nail polish. The chemicals that I use at work can be a little bit rough on nail polish, so I tend to have to change my nail polish, even gel polish, pretty regularly. So these are cheap and easy. And let's see, there's a few more comments on here. Stephanie wants to know, how can you tell what a yarn is going to look like when it's worked up? Particularly the white gray one on the table. Can you tell if it's going to be ombre or variegated or something else? So that's a good question. It is pretty difficult to tell whether it's ombre or variegated or if it's going to be self-striping. A lot of times you have to go based on signage. So if you're at a yarn show, they'll usually have something to indicate that they are gradient dyed or gradient/ombre or self-striping. One of the other things you can tell is usually the price will be quite a bit higher. Gradient dyed yarns and self-striping yarns are usually several dollars more per skein. And then if you're still unsure, the easiest way to tell is if you untwist it, you can tell that all of the yarn here in this section is all the same color, which means every time you go around this loop, so the yarn's wrapped in a loop, and if I pick up this tail, it's going to be, sorry. So if I pick up a tail from over here, it's going to be gray, 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 and then sort of this like brown gray, mossy, green gray, green, and then back to this. So this is a variegated that's going to have really long sections of this white green. So it's going to be long section of white and then mossy brown, green, back to mossy brown, and then long section of white. And that's how it's going to work up. So it's going to be closer to speckled, I guess, is probably the best term for this. You're going to have just a couple of other colored stitches and then a big section of gray, sort of a gray-white color. Yeah, I'll grab a different one. Let me see what I've got handy here. We'll leave that be. Rehanking is kind of hard on the fly here. I was looking for, I had some, I might have to grab it out of the bin in the side here. This one I think is going to be more evenly variegated, but it's also not a gradient. So you can see on this one, you've got short section of black, short section of blue, short section of purple, short section of blue, and then back to black. And so there's not going to be as long of sections. This one's going to work up much more variegated, where it'll just be speckle, 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 speckle. And I can kind of show you some examples of yarn that worked up like this. Let's see what I've got handy here. So I expect that the gray and green one is going to work up much like this shawl. So you're going to have big sections of one color and then smaller sections. So this yarn was a big loop of gray, and then there was really short sections of pink, red, yellow, orange, green, and then the mirror opposite, or like the mirror of that. And so you end up with these little short sections that are all going to kind of pool. And it's going to look very different because the colors are not going to be like rainbow, but it's going to work up with this general feel. Whereas something like this is going to work up with more, not like that, more like this, where the sections are going to, you're going to have chunks because you've got multiple stitches in here. But you'll have little chunk, little chunk, little chunk, maybe some bigger chunks, but all your different colors are going to, you're going to have a few stitches of blue, then a handful of stitches of black, then a few stitches of blue, then a few stitches of purple, and so it's going to keep changing like that, and you're going to get this sort of effect. On a gradient yarn, it obviously works up from one color to the outside. I'm going to step off camera for just a second and grab a gradient yarn that's hanked up. You guys can probably hear me digging around because I'm still mic'd up. Here's a gradient yarn. Okay. Sorry about that. So this is a gradient yarn hanked up. Oh, well, I already unhanked it. Hold on. And really, when you look at them, it's pretty difficult to tell what's going to happen here until I untwist it. So you can see that there's sections, but the difference here is that there's no big chunks of one color. So here's a big chunk of green, where this is a big chunk of like stripes. And that will be true of all gradient yarn, though it'll be hard to tell if it's gradient or self-striping. And self-striping would just be lots of repeats of colors. But if I unhank or untwist this and get it in just to a big loop, this is a giant loop of yarn, what you see here is that it's not changing as it's going around the ring, it's changing as the ring is building up. And so what this yarn is really light gray to medium gray to purple to sort of a raspberry color, and then blue, green, and then like kind of a peach color. So this is going to be a big gray shawl and then a whole bunch of little stripes of color. So hopefully that answers your question. I think going off of what they say and what's signed is probably your best bet. And then if you still can't tell, I think that undoing the twists, though, then you have to either learn how to redo the twists or get them to do it. Because I'm still not very good at redoing these twisty hanks. But that's not the worst I've ever done. Kind of going back through comments here. Somebody said they love the blue pops. I assume on this yarn here. And somebody's thanking Stephanie for asking the question. If you guys have any questions like that, I'm happy to go through and grab yarn out of my stash and show you anything like that. So if there's questions that you haven't asked because you're just embarrassed that you don't know the answer or whatever, please put those in the comments and I will gladly answer whatever I can help with. Yep, somebody was asking about buffering. And yeah, so I think I'm pretty caught up here. But yes, if you have any questions, yarn concepts or crochet terms or anything that you always wanted to know the answer to and were afraid to ask, please throw those in the chat and I'm happy to answer whatever I can. So I'm going to slide the destination yarns off to the side. By the way, this is from Wendy's Wonders. She has a very nice Etsy store and very nice gradients. So moving on to non-yarn things that I picked up. I showed you the pins that I grabbed from Destination Yarns. I also, a tiny part of me really wanted to go to Stitches just so I could pick up this last pin. This is my 2019 pin, and like I said, I pick up a bunch of different pins. I've got my bag here. I'll show you. We're adjusting the zoom on that so you guys can see here, but yep. So I've got this pin here. Oops, go this way. It's a tiny little sheep. And it says Stitches 2019, and it is obviously the quarter of a circle, and so the rest of that circle is here on my bag o' pins. And so I've got the 2016, which was a, looks like a thread and piece of fabric. The 2017 was a crochet hook and knitting needles and like a loop of yarn. The 2018 was a pretty purple hank of yarn pin. And then 2019 is this sheep, and it completes the circle there. And so part of me wanted to go just to get this pin, and so I did do that while I was there. You can sort of see I've got a handful of other pins going on this bag. One from Stunning Stitches that I got last year at YarnCon. This one's from Twisted Fiber Arts, a couple left over from chemistry conventions. And then there's these really cute ones that somebody sent me in a craft exchange. This one says Wand Chooses a Wizard, and it has a crochet hook. And this one is a golden snitch made from a yarn ball. So one from YarnCon a couple years ago. So variety pack of pins here. I do have a really cool one in here, but it won't stay on because it weighs so much. This is a little tin of, it says Danish biscuits, and it's got the little looks like the little biscuit tin, and inside it's just full of sewing supplies, which I thought was hilarious. So I bought these and had them shipped from like the Philippines, I think these shipped for. They took forever to get here. But anyway, I thought it was really cute. I also picked up, they had a couple of, well, they had these pins, the exact same pictures on a t-shirt, and I considered getting that, but decided I probably wouldn't wear it. And it said something about, have you had your fiber today? And so these are different pins. This one's a little roll of sushi with a hank of yarn on top instead of fish. Oh, there. Getting light on there so you can't see through the cellophane bags. I could just take them out of the bags. So this one is a little hank of yarn on made into a sushi roll, and the other one is a couple of balls of yarn and knitting needles and a crochet hook stuck into an ice cream cone. So just some cute little enamel pins that I picked up. These look like they're from nerdbirdmakery.com. I bought them at a place that I've lost their card. I bought them from White Birch Fiber Arts. So that's who was selling them there, but it looks like you can also get them online direct from the vendor. So set these guys aside. Yeah, I'll do those in just a second. Just kind of glancing back through the comments here. Some yarns work up better knitted versus crochet. Do you know what to look out? I guess there are yarns that look different knitted and crocheted, but I don't know of too many that work up better knitted versus crochet. I guess better and different aren't necessarily the same in my mind. There are yarns that they target for crocheters. So like Lion Brand's ZZ Twist has a Z twist to it instead of an S twist. And that's supposed to be helpful for crocheters because we twist our yarns differently than knitters do. But I don't know that it looks better crocheted than it does knit. I've seen people knit with ZZ Twist and it looks fine to me. There is also last week I showed, what was it? It was Premier's Bloom. It's a new yarn that makes little speckles that look like flowers when you work it up. And honestly, I thought it looked fine crocheted. A lot of their examples on their website are done in knit, and you can see the flower patterns very clearly. My husband's throwing that up there on the screen now. And you can see that it's very clearly, it's supposed to be like ivy style flowers and little leaves. And they look very, very different crocheted, but I don't think they look bad. So I guess there's the crocheted example, and you can see it's a little bit more scattered, but you can still get the general idea that they're supposed to be little floral sections in a field of colored sections. And so I guess it's sort of everyone's opinion, and I don't really know how to tell you what not to buy for crochet. I can tell you generally what things make it hard to crochet, but those things are usually true of knitting as well. Things like black yarn, loosely spun roving style yarn can make it very difficult to frog. Fun yarns and like really artsy yarns where they've got not speckles, but like glitter and like chunks of stuff hanging off of them, or fuzz, eyelash style yarn. All of those make things really difficult to crochet, but they're not usually a whole lot easier to knit. So that might not have been exactly the answer you were looking for, but The best you could do, I suppose, if you're worried about how it looks knitted versus crochet, and what I usually do when I want to see how a yarn works up, is I go to Ravelry, I find the yarn itself, and then I see what people have worked up. So if you go to Ravelry's website, you find Premier Bloom is brand new, so there's probably not a whole lot of options there. But if you go to Premier Bloom and then you click on projects, you'll get a whole list of everything everyone's made. And then there's a button up in the top right corner that says Advanced Search. And you can click on the left-hand side, there will be a spot where you can check crochet or knit, or I think machine knit are like all different options. And if you click a crochet project, you'll see all of the projects that people have loaded in there, made out of those yarns when they crocheted them. And then you can click and see how they look knitted. And I think that's even better than like a company produced swatch, because those are supposed to be exactly perfect and like probably made people do them over and over again until they were right. And these are what they actually look like worked up by real people. So that might be my best advice, is to go to Ravelry and see what it looks like worked up. Most of the bigger indie yarn brands will have people who have projects. They work very hard usually to make sure that people are putting projects up, and they usually offer incentives to certain people so that, you know, they might offer a discount to actually work it up and put a project up on their website. I have found that a lot of the really good yarn vendors at shows have all of their yarn colorways, or at least most of their colorways, worked up and on display, so you can see how they look worked up, crocheted, and knitted. We talk a lot about Twisted Fiber Arts, but they have one of the most stunning booths when you're at any of the shows. They basically have every colorway of every base worked up and like wallpapered the entire booth in shawls, all pinned all over the place. And it's really something to see, but it's really nice if you're trying to decide like, oh, how is this going to look worked up? What kind of shawl can I make? And you can just look around their booth and be like, okay, it's going to look like this if I make this pattern, if I work it sort of a lacy pattern. So, I don't know. Hopefully that helps. My husband's weighing in. I'm just catching it in the comments there. All right. So the last thing that I bought was a variety of beads. And I don't do tons and tons of beading, but I really, really like shawls with beaded edges. I worked up... Oh, you know what? It's upstairs. But in the front hall, it's that blue one that's got the beaded edge. It's somewhere between the top of the stairs and the front hall, because I almost wore it to Stitches. My husband's going to go get... he's going to go get the shawl that I have on hand with beaded edge. But anyway, so I came across a booth called Gilding Lilies, and this lady was super nice. She offered a whole bunch of extra services. So she said she does have a website, and if you couldn't determine a color or if it was going to match or work with your yarn, to snip off a piece and mail it to her, and she would go through her beads and send you pictures, and she was so nice, and she had really, really pretty beads, and so I bought a whole bunch of different ones. Obviously purple and blue heavy, because that's primarily the color shawls that I work up. But these are really like a blue-black that I thought would just really go awesome with this yarn here. They're going to really look nice against that yarn. I bought these matte teal ones just because they were really pretty. I have no idea what I'm going to do with them, but they're really cool, and I hadn't seen anything like them in particular. These are sort of an iridescent blue-purple. They're called Purple Lined Amethyst. I should go back and tell you what these colors are. These are Silver Lined Dark Cobalt. These are blue zircon matte, transparent blue zircon matte. These are, again, the purple lined amethyst. These are silver lined purple, and they're just a really bright, shiny purple. I had a really hard time last year finding true purple. They were all kind of burgundy. And so when I came across this and she had a lot of purples, I just bought kind of all of them. These are dark black diamond. And then they're just a really pretty, like, silver black bead. I've got purple lined aqua matte beads. These are really interesting. I think the lady told me they kind of look like fish eggs, so sorry, trying to block enough light that you can see what these look like, and I'm not having success figuring out which way the light. We've got lights kind of everywhere, so whichever light is causing the problem here, I'm not sure. Anyway, and then these last ones are silver lined hyacinth, and these are just really, really pretty orange. Occasionally I'll make something with orange, but I think these will look really awesome on something, even for like Halloween or Thanksgiving or something like that, kind of a fall shawl. This is one example of a beaded crochet shawl that I've made, and you can see the, well, maybe you can't see, the beads blend in almost perfectly with this yarn here. But they give it a really nice weight, and I don't know if you can hear this, but they kind of clink around really nicely. And just give the shawl a nice weight, and they lay really flat. But here you can see there's beads on the edge of each petal on these flowers, and then along the edges here. And so when you go to use beads, you have two options. You can pre-string, or you can use a beetle needle. And I'll grab my beetle needles and show you what those are. This is sort of my beading cup here. I don't usually keep tons of beads on hand, so this is kind of an excessive amount for me to have bought, but I guess I only have one beetle needle down here, but whatever. They'll do the trick. So this thing is a beetle needle. It is basically just a long wire with a tiny crochet hook on the edge here. Yes. So do a little bit more zoomed in version of this. We're going to zoom it in a little bit here for you. So you can see there's a teeny tiny little hook here on the edge. And the idea here is that as you're working your stitch, you pull your hook out, and then you insert this hook instead, and you slide a bead up and over the loop of yarn. I can probably, you can see a little bit better against the background, maybe?
Yeah, that's what I was hoping.
There we go. If I can figure out which direction. Everything's mirrored. So you can kind of see this little tiny crochet hook here. And then generally these beetle needles are supposed to have little stoppers to hold your beads. So, but you can preload a whole bunch of beads onto these. And I'm really surprised. I have like 4 beetle needles, and I don't know where they're all at right now. But I can show you real quick how these work up. If I've got some thin yarn, here I've got some thin yarn hanked, and I've got a relatively small crochet hook. So when you're working with this thing, so if let me chain and work a couple stitches here. It's going to be pretty open, but it'll do the trick. So one of the things that I should mention, all of the beads that I bought are 6/0 beads, so that's 6/0. And what that means is some sort of weird beading size that I don't really know a whole lot about. But 6/0 beads are perfect for fingering weight yarn. 8/0 beads are for lace weight yarn. So as the number gets bigger, the beads get tinier. So somebody was asking what I would use on a number 2 weight yarn. You probably could get away with an 8/0 bead, or sorry, a 6/0 bead, but you might have to go to a 4/0, which I think is an option in seed beads. But really, it's less to do with the hole size because you can just use this beading needle. So anyway, I've worked just a quick row of single crochet here. And if I'm ready to to put a bead on, what I do here, let me work one stitch so I'm not on the very edge here. Yeah, we're going to zoom out a little bit so you can see a little bit more clearly here. All right, so if I'm ready to put a bead on, I pull my hook out, and then this would be preloaded with beads. So every, I don't know, say 20 or so beads that you put on, you do have to stop and redo this thing. But trust me, it is so much better to put a few beads on a hook at a time than it is to pre-string hundreds of beads before you start crocheting. And like I said before, the Beatle Needle is supposed to have little stoppers on it that prevent the beads from falling off the back end. This one I got from Amazon, and it didn't come with the little stoppers. And so what I used are the little silicone backs that come with earrings, like dangly earrings. You can just slide onto the end of these, and they work perfect. But anyway, you grab where you would have been making your crochet stitch. I pulled my hook out, and then you put your yarn into the little hook here and slide the bead over top. And this does two things. Well, it does one really important thing. It gets the bead on there. But the other thing is that it's now, the bead is over both pieces of the yarn. And that makes it so that when you cinch this back down and make your stitch, you can see the bead on both sides of the stitch. And so you don't have a good and a bad side of your project, and you don't have to get them on from the same direction. If you pre-string, your beads are only on one piece of yarn, so that it has to rely on the weight of that yarn to hold the whole weight of the bead. And then if you pre-string also, you have to pay attention to which side of the project you're on, because you have to slide the beads up before you do the stitch differently if you're on the front side versus if you're on the back side of the project. And I'm working on a beaded project where beads are pre-strung specifically, and it is tedious. Like, it's really, really bad. So that's just sort of a quick beading demo. If you guys are interested in seeing more with beading, I'd be happy to do a little bit more in-depth beading demonstration and get a video together. But I wish I had my better beading needles up here. Honestly, I don't know where they're at if they're not in this jar. They must be up by where I sit on the couch. But I don't know if they're there or where they're at specifically. So I know at least one of them is up in the upstairs office because my husband was working on making me a holder and then like a little cup that was next to it and 3D printing it so that they could travel a little bit easier. Doing beading projects on the road is not super easy either. I want to say the Beatle Needle's somewhere between like $9 and $13. It's not terribly expensive. It's a little bit pricey though for just being a stick that holds beads. People do recommend beading, or I've seen recommended beading with steel crochet hooks. So steel crochet hooks are generally hooks that are below like a 2mm hook. And you can use those, but then you can't thread on like a whole row. Because I can get, I don't know, 20, 25 beads on here and only have to do it every so often. And if you use a steel crochet hook, you only have the length of the shaft of the hook to work with. So yeah, hopefully that helps. Not every pattern has to be beading specific. If you just want to bead the edge, you can figure out where it would look nice just based on looking at the pictures and figuring out how you want to get the beads on there. So if I just grab a shawl here, I've got this shawl here, and it's got just a nice, like, pointy edge here. And it would have been very easy to just put some beads right along this edge. And they wouldn't have been crazy, or you wouldn't have to go to town with beads, but you'd only need one for every peak here. And it would just give it something a little bit different. Actually, these would have been perfect for that if I wanted them to blend in. Or I could have gone with something that matched back here and put those on the edge to sort of tie it together if I wanted to. So you can kind of do blending beads or contrasting beads depending on how much you want them to stick out, and just bead whatever you want. I really like the way beads feel, and they add a lot of extra weight to it, and it makes it feel more substantial without adding more yarn or like making it too warm to wear. So kind of going back through here. Somebody asked if the beads are glass. They are. They're all check glass, I believe. That's generally what they are. These are all Toho beads, which I think were a Japanese style seed bead. But at least most of my beads are check glass. But yes, primarily they are glass. I have never had any break or anything like that. So if that's what you're worried about, though, if you bead something, I probably wouldn't run it through the wash machine anymore. There's probably a good chance that you could break them in the washer. Somebody said they'd love to see a demo. Hopefully the demo helped explain some of the concepts. Let's see. Yeah, so it looks like a lot of people would like to see a demo. Somebody suggested using a thin wire. You can use just any thin wire, though this is a really rigid thin wire. I'm not sure what material it is, but you could certainly bend a wire, and actually some of them are straight. I like the crooked ones a little bit better just because they're a little bit easier to hold on to. But they do make a straight version of this, and then you probably could use a Dremel tool to notch this. We actually use wire at work that has to be notched, and it works pretty easily to just put a little notch. You do need some sort of notch or hook on the end to hold the yarn while you slip the bead, because otherwise the yarn will just slide off the edge and you won't get the bead over the yarn. Yeah, so lots of people are just saying they'd like to see dedicated videos. Somebody said that they have only used pre-stringing. Pre-stringing, like I said, I hate pre-stringing beads. It takes so long, and then you just give up, and I don't know. Somebody mentioned that putting beads on a piquet is nice. I agree. Just anywhere that there's like a little edging or a little detail, a bead gives really nice added bonus there. Too, in this shawl, there's other spots where you could add beads really easily. It would be very easy if you wanted to go really crazy. You could put a bead everywhere that this mesh section joins up. So every single crochet here. So you do all these chains, and every single crochet could have a bead. You could put beads at the points on all of these. I don't know what you call these. The shape, kind of a pine cone or bunch of grapes. It kind of looks like to me, but you could put them at the points here. So even if the pattern doesn't specifically call for beading, you should be able to look at the pattern and see where beads would look nice. I know that this particular designer comes up in pretty much every live stream, but Rachie Newen Designs, which is one of my favorite designers, is actually doing a whole bunch of beading shawls right now. She just got into to beading, and so a lot of her shawls coming out right now have beads. So if you want a bead specific design or a shawl that was designed with beading in mind, you can always check her patterns out as well. And then I see it says nice, glass holds up. I can't tell if there's a question mark after that or if that's just a statement, but in my experience, yes, the glass holds up, so I agree there. So yeah, that's sort of the end of what I bought at Stitches. I think that's at the end of what I bought. I didn't buy from a whole bunch of different places. There's so many people there vending, and it just becomes overwhelming to try and figure out what exactly. So I bought a few things from a couple of places and tried to keep it relatively simple as far as what I was buying. A lot of the vendors I see every single year there, and they're always the same. And like I said, it was part of the reason that we were considering not going, and I'm glad we went, really in particular because I found this bead company, but I also got some things that I really like. But if you, I know we've mentioned this before, but if you have any sort of yarn or fiber event around you, they're really a lot of fun, even if you don't think that you want to spend the money for indie dyed yarns. It's fun to just go be around fiber people and see all the different things going on. I did notice a lot less gradient yarns there this year. At least I felt like there were a lot less gradients. There were a lot more mini skein sets though. So like this set that I have here, I always see these at every fiber show, but I felt like there were a lot more of these and a lot less cakes that were a gradient. So that might just be a trend that's coming down the pipes, or it might just been who was vending there. I also felt like there were a lot more vendors who had solid, really nice tonal colors. So, Stunning String, like I showed earlier, has just basically a wall of, I don't know, what would you say, 35 colors? And then every single color on every base. And so it's a row of Exceptional Lace, and then a row of Smashing Sock, and then a row of Serenity, and every one in Aubergine, and every one in Charcoal, and every one in Regal Purple, and they probably have 35, 40 colors in every single base they have, which is a really impressive thing to see. But a lot more tonals, I felt, like solid colors going on. So,
there was
yeah.
also a lot of the same movie, TV show yarns that we were trying to kind of skip.
Yeah. So my husband was saying that there are a lot of vendors who have the same themes, and they're always, it's not just that everyone's doing TV show themes or movie themes, it's that they're all doing Harry Potter, they're all doing Game of Thrones, they're all doing Outlander, and so everything starts to sort of run together, and the ones that end up standing out are the ones who are doing something totally different. So
Destination stands out amongst all of them.
yeah, Destination stands out because they have some photography that go with their yarns, and you can really see where they were going with the colorways. So if I push enough stuff out of the way here, they had pictures that went with the space yarn, they had pictures that went with the Scotland yarn, and you could see really where their color inspiration came from. And they really had a booth that stood out, and so we went with these colors, but there were probably a dozen others that I absolutely could have bought there. Some of their Chicago colorways were really pretty. They had a Lakeshore Drive one, and a Millennium Park one that I think was really nice. And I don't know if they vend the Chicago colorways just because it's Stitches Midwest and it's near Chicago, or if it's just one of their popular colorways. I don't actually remember where Destination Yarn is out of. It's not on their tags here. If they're from Illinois, I guess the Chicago colorways makes a lot more sense. Cleveland, Ohio, I guess, is where they vend out of. So the Great Lakes ones make more sense, but the Chicago might just be a Stitches thing. They are usually there. I think this is the first or second time that I've bought from them, but yeah, so really the booths that stand out to me are the ones doing something different and have something unique, and nothing against the Harry Potters or Game of Thrones or Outlander yarns. It's just that, again, they all tend to be samey. You could only look at a burgundy and gold variegated colorway from 15 different vendors and not start to feel like it's just all the same yarn. And the same with green and black for Slytherin and stuff like that with the Harry Potter yarns and whatnot. So, yeah, so let's see, kind of going back through. I love using Kool-Aid to dye yarns and to tie-dye. I haven't tried much dyeing. I've bought dyes. They're sitting back there in the background by my little tiny mannequin back there. And one of these days I am going to dye something up. I've got yarn on hand even that I can dye. I just haven't broke out all of the tools to do it. I'd really love to do it on stream, but dyeing requires hot water, and I would have to have some setup to be able to get hot water down here. And so that's been part of the limiting factor, is just how we go about logistically getting basically boiling water down here, because there's no water hookups in our basement. And then, let's see, the tonals look great with my hair. Yeah, these from Utopia really match pretty well. I actually had my hair re-dyed before the show, not because of the show, but just right before we left. And there were a lot of comments on things that matched my hair. The colors that are in my hair are very popular in yarn right now. So these here, this here, matches my curtains as well over there. But yeah, there were a lot of comments on the colors matching. Let's see. Sue says that this is her first time watching. Welcome. This is probably also a good time to mention, well, I've got a bunch of you here, that if you're not a subscriber, please go ahead and hit subscribe, and make sure that when you subscribe that you hit the bell. And then you'll get a drop-down menu that'll say either you want all of the notifications or just like tailored notifications. What are they called? Personalized? Personalized or all are your options. And so if you are a subscriber and you're not getting notifications, I've mentioned this a few times, so some of you might be sick of hearing this, but if you're not getting all the notifications, you're not finding out about when the live streams are happening, make sure to change the bell from personalized to all, and you should get all of the notifications. Though I still have a handful of people tell me that they're still not getting notifications, my husband included. So YouTube, there's only so much you can do, but the best I can offer is hit the bell. You can see the little bell dancing around right there. And if you hit the bell and hit all, that's the most notifications that I can get you. Also, if you are following me on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, I post right before we start the live stream at Experiments in Crafting, and you should get notifications about one of those things, or you might see the post and know that we are live streaming or we've posted a new video. While I was at Stitches, I posted a whole bunch of pictures while we were wandering around, so you can see those. And yeah, so follow me there. I've also said repeatedly, if you have any questions about videos that I've posted or crochet topics or yarn topics, you can feel free to message me on Facebook or on Instagram, and hopefully I can help you out in some with whatever you've got going on, crochet or yarn related. If you've made stuff out of videos that I've posted, like one of my baby blanket patterns or something like that, I'd love to see finished objects. And again, you can direct message me or you can tag me at Experiments in Crafting on Facebook and Instagram.
Wasn't there somebody who said last week they were going to send you a baby blanket picture or something?
Yeah, somebody did mention last week that they were going to send me a picture of a baby blanket. I don't believe I got that. I didn't have any messages. Both Facebook and Instagram are locked down a little bit because they don't allow pictures to come through if you're not like friends on Facebook or Instagram. And so they come as like blurred out pictures, and then it's like, do you want to accept? And I'm like, I don't know if I want to accept yet, but I usually do. So I don't think there have been any that I haven't accepted, and occasionally there's spam places that want to, sell you bots that'll help your Instagram feed or something. But anyway, kind of looking through the comments here. My husband asked if the Kool-Aid washes out, and Savannah says that it stays just fine. I imagine you have to use, Savannah, do you use cotton or do you use wool when you do that? Generally, you can't dye synthetic fibers, things like acrylic or polyester, but natural fibers tend to dye pretty well. I just wonder if the Kool-Aid stays on wool or if it needs to be cotton. Runaway Needle Red said that they've dyed cross-stitch fabric with Kool-Aid and heat set it with vinegar or citric acid. Okay, that makes sense. Dawn's saying that she still doesn't get the notifications, and I think that's gotta just be YouTube being bad at being YouTube. There is a reason that people have abandoned ship and gone to other platforms, but YouTube, I think, is still probably the most popular for this topic. And Stephanie said, oops, that she'll send me over those pictures. So that would be great. I'd love to see all those pictures. Wasn't trying to call you out on that specifically. I think it was mostly my husband just asking if I had seen those. And Savannah said she uses both wool and cotton. So that's good to know. Maybe at some point I'll grab some Kool-Aid and I'll grab some of these dyes that I've bought and we'll try both of these things. My sister used to have a little induction cooktop. Maybe I can borrow that. I've got pans that it would work with an induction cooker. And then I wouldn't need to have like a gas stove or something down here. That was really the thing that I wasn't sure how I was going to keep water hot.
You could just go buy one at Tuesday morning. They have those.
Yeah, we've seen those before too at Tuesday morning, little induction cookers. And maybe we'll give that a shot. So, somebody's saying that some need longer time to. Oh, it's Savannah saying that some yarns need longer time to set, and just a bucket. Yeah, I could give it a shot. If the Kool-Aid dyes work at room temperature or just warmish water, I can heat it upstairs and bring it down hot. But if I know some dyes need to get hot and stay hot, and you need to like boil them for a while. The other thing is I think you have to put the yarn in. From what again, I have no dyeing experience, but what I've seen in YouTube videos and classes and stuff, that you need to put the yarn in at room temperature and bring it up to not get it to felt. And maybe that's not a problem with superwash wools, and probably not a problem with cotton, but yeah, that wouldn't really be a tutorial stream. It would be let's see what kind of mess I can make of dyeing yarns. There is also the option always that you can RIT dye stuff, and RIT dyes are pretty foolproof, and I've used those before to dye curtains, and you can just do that in the wash machine. So, yeah. I'm trying to think if there was anything else I wanted to talk about this week. Mostly we wanted to just talk about what we bought at Stitches and mention that, again, we're not going to be live streaming next Tuesday. It's actually my birthday, and I'll be out of town early in the day, and then we go to dinner on my birthday. So I'm just probably not going to get to live streaming on Tuesday. I will do my best to live stream on Wednesday instead. So we'll plan for Wednesday next week, and just keep an eye on, again, Facebook or Instagram, or hopefully you'll get notifications from YouTube. I will put it in the community section on YouTube, but I don't actually have any idea how that works, or if you guys get notifications when I post something in the community tab. I did put a poll in a while back, and a number of people answered it, but I don't. I'm subscribed to myself on a like unrelated channel, and I didn't get any sort of notification. So I don't know. I don't know if that helps or not, but you can check there and find out if we're going to stream next Wednesday. And yeah, other than that, if there are things that you would like to see sooner rather than later, so it sounds like there's a lot of interest in this beading tutorial, so I can kind of move that up my list of ideas. But aside from that, unless you guys have other questions, a lot of people telling me happy birthday. Thank you very much. And somebody's mentioning you have to soak yarn or fabric beforehand to even absorb. With the dyes, yeah, I would believe that that's probably true as far as getting dye uptake to work. I've mentioned this before on stream, but I work in a sort of textile related job for my day job. And so some of that learning, I think, translates, and some of it not so much. I primarily work with cotton, but I'd be probably dyeing wool if we dye on stream. So, and then let's see. A handful of people asking for beading tutorials. So that sounds like it's the most popular thing, and I'm happy to oblige. I can show you guys how I bead. I have a couple of shawls that I'm working on that could all have beads. So I can show you how to bead using the Beatle Needle, and then I can show you how to bead using pre-strung beads, despite the fact that I hate it. Somebody asked where I got the beading tool. This is a Beatle Needle from, right here. The Verna X Beatle Needle. It's a 0.8 millimeter. This one might be the 0.8 millimeter. They come in a 0.8 or a 1 millimeter with the little hook on them. The 0.8s are for 8/0 beads, and I usually use a 1 millimeter for 6/0 beads.
This one, Lace's 1 millimeter Verna Beetle Needle?
Yes. I use the one with the crook, but you don't have to, you can get the straight one as well. My husband's going to post the link for Amazon. You can get them from Amazon. The only place that I've actually seen in person where you can buy them is actually Stunning String. That was at Stitches. They sell them. I rarely see them in like stores or anything like that. I've never seen them in Joann or anything like that. So Amazon would be my best suggestion, and then somebody else online had them. Might have been yarn.com, like Webs or something like that might have had them, but Amazon's fine. Though I do say that, but I didn't, like I said before, there's supposed to be these two little black rings that hold the beads on, and I ordered two from Amazon. Well, actually, I ordered one from Amazon and then told them that it didn't have all the parts, and they just sent me another one and told me to keep the first one. And the second one didn't have the little things on it either, so I don't know what the problem was with that batch of Beatle needles. But what I used were if you have dangly earrings, they come with these like little bitty silicone ends, and I just slid them onto the hook and it worked perfect. So anything that just holds onto the hook and keeps the beads from sliding off is really all you need. If yours doesn't happen to come with these things. All right, so yeah. Somebody said hot glue the ends. The hot glue would be fine on the bottom end, but the top end you need to be able to pull off. Though I guess you could probably like make a hot glue thing and then like loosen it and get it to slide. Sort of like a little knot of hot glue and see if you could get it to slide off. It might work. But you have to be able to get the top off because you have to slide the beads up. And then you really want to put the top back on if you're going to stop working so that you don't come back and you have a whole pile of beads and you have to restring them again. The other thing I mentioned, it's pretty hard to string beads like on the go. Like a lot of people work in their car, and I found beading in the car pretty difficult. And so I wouldn't super recommend it. Also, the hook on this thing is super sharp and will pierce through fabric. So if you use a fabric, like a project bag that you carry with you, it will go right through that, and then it's like a fish hook because it's got this little edge on it and you can't pull it back real easily. This came from Lacis, Lacis, and they sell a like 8-inch plastic tube, very similar to this, but long enough to store this beetle needle in. And it's a couple of dollars, and it's really worth it. There's probably some other kind of tube, or you could use a beading tube if you got a long enough one. Actually, this one comes pretty close, but not quite. If you got a really extra long tube of beads, you could store it in there. But like a little plastic baggie or like a mesh bag is not enough. You can see like it gets stuck pretty easily. So I would recommend the hard plastic tube, even though they do rip you off a bit and charge way too much. A couple people are mentioning silicone to seal. Oh, like silicone for sealing up windows could maybe make little ends for it, or rubber dip. And again, all of those would be fine on this end as long as you can get whatever you put on the top, you can get back off. It needs to be able to slide off the top because you have to slide the beads off the top. But the bottom end is fine. You can just slide all the beads onto it. All right. So if nobody has any other questions, we will get a beading tutorial together as soon as we can. I don't know if we do that as a live stream or if we'll do that as a full video.
It's pretty hard to film, so you should do it as a video.
Okay, so my husband's saying we'll probably do it as a video and release it because it'll be pretty difficult to film on a live stream.
It already was.
As you already saw, it was already pretty difficult to try and get it in focus. And generally when we shoot tutorial videos, they are shot from over my shoulder so that they're hands-on and you can see where your hands are supposed to be. When we shoot in front of me, everything's reversed and it's really difficult for me to stay on frame. because I move around and then I move to the left and the picture moves to the right, and it's not very good at mirroring apparently. Runaway Needle Red saying that they can't deal with beads at night. You have to have really good eyesight, or it's very frustrating. Yeah, beads can be a little bit tricky. I bought a thing from Harbor Freight, which is like a hardware store that I occasionally buy craft things from. And it's not a craft thing at all, but it's a headlamp that gives you really direct light, like right where you're working, and that worked really well. For It's upstairs in. It's probably in the bin that's on the couch because I pulled that bin out of the nest earlier. My husband's gonna go get it so I can look ridiculous for you guys. It looks crazy, but it is really handy to have light looking basically exactly where your eyes are at. So I did buy that. It was like $8 or something. Runaway Needle Red's asking, what are the prices of the beads? So I was a little bit surprised, but the bead prices were kind of all over the place based on the different beads. So I'll give you a sort of a ballpark here. They are between $3.50 and $6.25 for the different beads. And they didn't seem to really follow any trend that I could understand. So these silver lined ones were $3.50. These silver lined ones were $4.75. These silver lined ones were $5.75. The purple lined matte ones were the most expensive at $6.25. These matte ones were only $4.25. These silver lined ones were $5.75. And these were the purple lined ones, and they were $5.25. So between $3.50 and $6.25 is what these were. They're all the same weight, I believe, like the weight in beads, and I think there's a couple hundred in each tube. But usually there's some sort of approximate amount of beads. Looks like this tube is saying they're 24 grams of check glass. And there's probably about the same amount of beads. This tube's a little fatter and a little bit shorter, so it probably comes out to a wash in how many beads there are. Oh, you couldn't find it? So I won't wear the headlamp this week, but I'll try and find it and show you guys what I mean as far as using. One of the things that I've wanted to do for a while is to do a tutorial of crafting supplies that I've bought in non-craft stores. So I use blocking mats that come from Harbor Freight. I use a rolling tool bag for a sewing thread, not sewing thread, but a sewing machine carrying bag. And so there's a video that eventually will get made that's tool store crafting items, basically. But yeah, I think to answer your question, I think there's a couple hundred beads in here, and about $4 for a tube is about the right price for beads, in about that price, give or take a couple dollars. So, Stephanie's saying she'd be interested, and so is Joyce, and so is Runaway Needle Red. All in hearing about the primarily it will be Harbor Freight. Harbor Freight is sort of a weird store. It's not like Home Depot or Menards or Lowe's. It's a little bit different. And they have a lot more odd stuff in there. But I've bought a number of things in there that work just perfectly for crafting. So, yeah, somebody's mentioning that they're not surprised. So.
No, they're saying that their husband was surprised that they liked Harbor Freight.
Oh, okay. I misread the comment. Yeah. I think that ends up being the case with a lot of my husband's friends. Probably not my husband specifically, because I'll go pretty much anywhere, but a lot of people are surprised that I don't mind going to hardware stores, just like he doesn't mind going to yarn festivals. We can both take part in each other's hobbies without, you know, complaining. So, yeah. Stephanie's mentioning the little containers. I have a bunch of those all over the place. They make a really cool one that's like a clamp that goes around a whole bunch of little containers. If it's not up there, it's over on the counter over there. But it's the only thing that disappoints me about. This is one of them. It's not the one I was thinking of. I have one that's like little containers. I don't know where it's at. So something like this came from Harbor Freight, where it's got storage in the top. This is all full of buttons. This is my button box. And then this is like for tackle, but you can see they're sorted. These are all plastic buttons. These are all colors. These are wooden beads and fake pearls and lots of shaped buttons. And then these are all different shapes and themes, and then randomly a multi-pack of purple buttons. But things like this from the hardware store are so much cheaper than the exact same thing from Michaels or Joann Fabric. The only thing that you have to deal with is that everything is yellow and black instead of teal or pink or purple. At which point, if it matters that much, you could probably just get a can of spray paint. This is actually the thing that I was talking about. It's kind of a weird thing, but I know this came from Harbor Freight as well. It's got these clips here, and you can unlock each side, and it's got like all these little clear cases for just random stuff, and so it would be perfect for somebody who crafts, especially if you have to travel with your crafts, because it locks down pretty securely. So, and you've got access to both sides independently. You don't have to dismantle the whole thing. So, lots of interesting things at the hardware store, especially like a place like Harbor Freight that's not really a hardware store so much as it is like a tool store. Let's see, where am I at here? Plastic gripper things. I'm not sure what the plastic gripper things are. Storage containers, definitely. Wire. All sorts of... They have lots of little sets of, like, springs and screws and all sorts of, like, weird little sets of stuff that you can get, like, really specific hardware if you need something for a project, too. But yeah, so Savannah mentioned the Pringles can. My husband's commenting in there about how it would work for a Beatle needle and for holding crochet hooks, and that's absolutely true. Like, you can use that. All my crochet hooks are in one of those snap, like, food storage containers, which also would hold the Beatle needle. But usually when I'm traveling, I have way, way, way more yarn than I could ever possibly need to take with me. And all my crochet hooks and whatever project I'm currently working on and whatnot. But I like to keep the beads and everything and the hook that I'm working with all in the bag. And that's where I've run into trouble, is that the needle will poke through the bag. I don't know. I like it in the bag with the project versus in the hook storage container. But that's just how I like things. I don't know. But yes, a Pringles container absolutely would work, and it would be a lot cheaper, and you get a can of Pringles. Because the stupid tube that they sold me It's like twice as long as this. It's a clear plastic tube, and I think I paid like $6 for it, for a plastic tube. But the stupid Beatle needle fits in it. So anyway, if there's no other questions tonight, we'll probably get things wrapped up here. Though if there are questions, please throw those in the comment section and I'll try and answer what I can. Looks like we're going to be doing a beading tutorial pretty quickly here, and try and get that out to you guys so that you can start beading everything. Beads are relatively cheap compared to the cost of a lot of the fancy yarns, and I think they really add a cool element to it. Somebody earlier said that they look very elegant, and I really agree with that. So hopefully you saw some things that you like here, and you're interested in going to some of these yarn shows, and hopefully there's something near you. We did look last week. Somebody was in Georgia or Florida, and there was not a whole lot. But if you're in the Midwest, there's usually sheep and wool type. I guess I shouldn't say just the Midwest. Those extend into the East Coast, but I don't know of too many sheep and wool things going on in the South or on the West Coast, but there are usually yarn shows all over the country. The Stitches event, Stitches Midwest is always in Schaumburg, but Stitches United moves around year to year and different locations. So hopefully you can get out to one of these events and meet some of these vendors and see some of these cool yarns in person, touch and squish them. So one last time, if you need anything from me, you can always find me at Experiments in Crafting on both Facebook and Instagram. Feel free to direct message me with any issues you're having, questions you have about yarn, and share projects that you might have seen on the channel. Things like baby blankets and projects that I've shared with you guys, stitches like that. I'd love to see any of those things. Let's see. Somebody's asking if they have sparkly beads. Most of them sort of just sparkle because they're glass. And then a few of them are like, you can see here, they hit the light differently. These are silver lined, and so they have kind of a shimmery center. I do have one set of beads. I'll pull them out real quick. They're in my button box, I'm pretty sure. And actually, I am wrong. They're in this bowl. I really love these. I bought these from Stunning String last year. They're pretty hard to see in the container. Let me see if I can open this up without spilling them all over. Probably can't. These are called Hint of Rainbow. Oh, they're actually sealed up. Well, I don't know if you can see these particularly well, but they look just like bubbles. Try and block a little bit of the light here. Which way is this light coming from? They're pretty hard to see, but I'll try and get these open for the video. They have like an iridescent look to them, but these are from Stunning Strings Studio. This says that there's 30 grams of beads and there's 500 in here. So somebody was asking about beads before, and so that kind of gives you a rough idea. But again, these are number 204 Hint of Rainbow, and they, like I said, they look like bubbles. So I've got a whole bunch of different ones in here, some that are less practical than others. But yeah, so anyway, we were wrapping up, and again, if you need to direct message me or tag me in any posts, you can find me at Experiments in Crafting on Facebook and Instagram. If you just found this stream tonight and you are not already a subscriber, please hit subscribe. And if you are a subscriber but you don't seem to be getting notifications, make sure you go over and click that bell and change it from personalized to all so that you get all of the notifications. And aside from that, I can't do anything more to make YouTube send out notifications. But that's the best chance of you getting a notification that we are live or that we've posted a video. Somebody in the comments mentioned that please thumbs up the video, and that would be great. If you like the video, please hit like and subscribe to the channel. That helps us out a lot. Other than that, again, we won't be live streaming next Tuesday. We're going to try and live stream Wednesday instead. So hopefully we will see you next week. Thanks for watching.